Good morning. Oh, come on. Come on. Good morning. How we doing? How we feeling today? Feeling good? Anyone stay up a little late last night? Anyone go to the bar at the end of the evening? Anyone? No? Tonight, maybe? Okay, well, that's enthusiastic endorsement for the bar. Listen, it's really an honor and a pleasure to be here with you today. Again, my name is Chad Waitzig. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Crunch Fitness. What I thought I would do, how many of you are familiar with Crunch? It's okay if you're not. Okay, so a good show of hands in the room. I'm going to take 30 seconds or so and just give you a little bit of background about who we are. We were founded in 1989 in Greenwich Village in New York City, and we were really designed to be an alternative gym. In fact, we weren't actually a gym when we opened. We were an aerobics studio. Remember aerobics? Anyone old enough to remember aerobics? We were founded really based on two fundamental consumer insights. One, gyms can be intimidating places, right? How many of you have personally said, I know I have, I can't join the gym yet, I've got to lose 20 pounds, right? Because we're worried about how we're going to look to all these people that we think are, immaculate representations of human DNA working out in these gyms, right? But also, if you've never been in a gym before, it's overwhelming, right? Plates and pins and pulleys and benches and all, what's that I don't know what the hell that thing does, but I'm not getting anywhere near it, right? So gyms can be intimidating. The other core fundamental insight about our business is that the motivation to work out is really, really hard. And the motivation to sustain it is even harder. So we think that for our members, the best thing that they can do is actually just get to the gym, right? No one ever leaves the gym after spending an hour there saying, God damn, I wish I hadn't done that. But how many of us have ever said, I wish I hadn't slept in that extra half an hour. I wish I had gone to the gym, right? The motivation to work out's even hard. So what we do at Crunch is that it's all about making serious fitness fun. We believe that human beings like to do things that are fun, and that we'll keep coming back to doing it again and again and again. And that's the way we've designed our gym, from our classes, to our environment, to our team and our culture, to the way in which we interact with our members, to our personal trainers, right? We want to create this fun experience. So that's a little bit about who we are. We have 550 locations. We're primarily in the United States and Canada. We also have some clubs in Australia. We just opened up in India. We've got a couple clubs in Costa Rica, and we've got some other international expansion. But really, North America is our growth engine. So with that, let's dive in. This is a pizza, all right? Now, you probably didn't think a fitness guy was going to talk about pizza, but here we are. If you've ever tried this pizza, most of you have probably never, this is actually a pizza chain. This is from a pizza chain. Most of you probably have never tried this pizza before. And if you did try it, if I had been smart enough, I would have had some shipped in. We would have all sampled it. Probably 9 out of 10 of you would absolutely hate it. But I love, love, love this pizza. And there's a lot of emotion tied to this pizza for me. So this pizza is from a place in my hometown, St. Louis, Missouri, a place called Emo's Pizza. Has anyone ever heard of Emo's Pizza before? Has anyone ever tried Emo's Pizza before? Do you two like Emo's? Do not like it? Do not like it. I love it. It is cracker thin. It has a special cheese called Provel cheese, which is a blend of mozzarella, cheddar, and provolone with a little bit of like liquid hickory smoke mixed in. It is either awful or amazing. I love it. But not only do I love it, it really makes me sentimental for growing up. Makes me sentimental for a simpler time. Back when I was in high school, hanging out with my friends, we'd go to Emo's, right? After a night out, we'd all go to Emo's and have pizza. And, the thing about that time in my life, what was the toughest thing I had to deal with, right? My God, am I going to pass that physics test? Is Amy going to go to the dance with me? Do I have enough money to put gas in my car when it was, 75, 80 cents a gallon? Like that was it, right? That was it. Now, the reality might have been really different. I probably was pretty stressed out at the time. But when I look back on it, it made me nostalgic for the past. So every time I go home to St. Louis, you can be sure that that's on my list of things to do while I'm there. Either with friends that still live in the area or with my family. I've bought it on Goldbelly. And in fact, Aldi just did a deal where they actually got frozen Imo's pizzas and put them in the freezer case. I drove 40 minutes. I live in Connecticut, outside of New York City. I drove 40 minutes to the closest Aldi to me so I could buy 6 or 7 of them and throw them in the freezer. So for me, that's nostalgia. And that's what we're going to talk about today, right? We're going to talk about how nostalgia can help drive your business, can drive sales, and build loyalty. And we leaned into that this year at Crunch. And I'm going to share with you just a few learnings that we had that, hopefully they'll apply to you and give you something to think about. So let's first start. We're going to do the technical. Let's do a definition of what nostalgia is, right? It's a sentimental yearning for the happiness of a former place or time. And it's actually a mashup of 2 Greek words. If anyone speaks Greek in here, my apologies if I screw this up. Nostos, which literally means we know, but I think it's been translated to be homecoming, and algia, which is pain. We know pain. We know pain. Why does nostalgia mean that? Well, it actually was coined in the 1600s as a medical term. It was used to diagnose the anxieties of Swiss mercenaries who were fighting away from home and they were missing home. And that's how the term came up. Today it obviously means something different, right? We might call it the good old days, or if you're a Springsteen fan, it's the glory days, right? And this yearning can be personal, like it is with me for Imo's Pizza, but it can also be cultural, right? A whole society can get behind nostalgia and sentimentality. So I'm going to give you an example, and most of you in the room are too young to probably remember this, but there was a period from about the early 1970s, 73, 74, through about the mid-1980s, call it 84, 85, where the boomers were coming of age, and they were dealing with Vietnam, Watergate, the gas crisis, stagflation, right? And media was really looking back to the late 1950s, early 1960s as a simpler time. Now, it might not have been a simpler time, right? The late 50s and 60s, if you were a white man, was probably a pretty good time. If you weren't, maybe not. But society looked back at things were just simpler back then. Things were more complex in the 70s and the 80s. So culture can support or even trigger nostalgia, right? And you've got examples here, right? From American Graffiti, Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, the band Sha Na Na. My God, they were awful, weren't they? You've got the movie Diner, and then you kind of cap it off at the end with Back to the Future, where you went back to 1955, right? So culture can help drive nostalgia, and certainly research has shown that it can increase social connections, right? And that's where we are today. So what I'd like to do is share with you the TV spot that we came up with for our new campaign called Feel More. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to share it with you here. And hopefully it'll show you how we at least dip into the mid-1990s. Okay, so let's just take a quick look, and then I'll talk about the key learnings.
This is how we do it. It's Friday night, and I feel alright. The party's here on the west side, so tip up your cup and throw your hands up, and let me hear the party say, I'm kind of buzzed, and it's all because this is how we.
Want to feel more? Crunch Fitness is how you do it, starting at $9.99 a month.
All right, so that spot was a lot of fun to shoot. Obviously, we've got the music. This is how we do it. We actually had the legendary director, Hype Williams, who directed the original music video for This Is How We Do It, to direct this spot for us. But there's a lot that goes into just creating that spot, right? And why we did that and how it drives our campaign. So let's talk about that. I'm going to share with you 3 lessons. And lesson number 1, we didn't ask for a nostalgic ad. That was not part of the brief. That was never the mission. We started with consumer insight and clear business goals, right? That's how most of you probably run your marketing. And we let the creative find its way from there, right? That was the plan. Nostalgia, we think, and hopefully you would agree, only lands when it's relatable, authentic, and meaningful to the audience. So the punchline here is that nostalgia is not a strategy, right? It's what happens when you truly understand your consumer. It can be an outcome, but it's not a strategy. So let's get the insight correct, and then the creative tends to find a way. And that's how this campaign came to life. So that's lesson number one. So let me give you a little bit, see, it's early. And I was up late. We had a great dinner last night, but it was a late night for me. So bags under the eyes. Thank you. Huh? I did not. I was going to go to the gym this morning, and I actually regret not going, but the extra 30 minutes of sleep actually really felt good. So let me give you a little background about our business objective. And so I'm going to actually take you back a couple of years. I'm going to take you back to the pandemic. So pandemic came, devastated, obviously, I mean, it was obviously a huge impact personally for everyone in this room, and certainly to your businesses, I'm sure for the most part, had a significant impact. Some obviously did very well, right? The delivery businesses did well. Our business was devastated. We were closed worldwide for at least 4 months. And then things began to reopen slowly but surely, right? But it took a good year and a half before every location was kind of back to business as usual. There were restrictions when we reopened, right? Social distancing and capacity limits, and so it was a struggle to get out of that. And when we got out of the pandemic, we actually did very well. The business really picked up. People had a real desire to get back to fitness. Our business benefited from that. But we knew that there was still something kind of underlying the consumer. Now look, we love our members. I think they're the most noble people in the world, because every day when they're in our gym, they're just trying to become the best version of themselves, right? That's relative, right? So what the best version of me versus the best version of you, those are very different things, but we're both struggling to get it. But we saw that our members were still struggling kind of post-COVID. So we did some deep research with them. And what we found is that this generation, by the way, I should step back, our target consumer, adults 18 to 39, we call them young, strong, and social. So there's kind of a desire for health and wellness kind of underlying that target. But we do call them young, strong, and social. And what we found with the young, strong, and social is that much of their formative years of creating social connections in their lives, right? So they were either like late teenagers or young adults in their 20s, early 30s. At times when we all were doing things to kind of build social relationships, that was interrupted by COVID. So you had the impact of COVID, and then coming out of COVID, you had the post-COVID loneliness that was real. You have the impact of social media and what that does from a negative societal standpoint. You had wars, 2 wars, now we've got 3, but you had 2 wars kind of going on in the world. You had post-COVID inflation. You had a rise in interest rates. And now you've got layoffs, and you've got job loss, and you've got a slowing economy. So our members and our consumers really feel like they're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. And the one thing that they all said is that working out is for their mental health. In fact, 9 out of 10 consumers say that working out is beneficial to your mental health, while only 8 of 10 consumers say that working out is beneficial for your physical health, right? So for them, the gym was a place to escape. Now, we created a campaign called Feel Good, Not Bad, and we didn't want to represent the bad with war and toxic politics. I don't even think I mentioned that. I don't know if you've noticed, but for the last decade or so, we've had some toxic politics in this country. We're not going to talk politics in our ad, we're not going to talk war, we're not going to talk inflation. So what the agency came up with, we thought was very clever, which was these kind of metaphorical, humorous scenarios that are designed to represent the bad in the world, right? Everyday things or over-the-top hyperbolic things. And that crunch is the place where you can feel good, right? It's the place you escape, right? So that was the first campaign. So I'm going to share with you, this was our launch spot from 2024.
Some things feel bad. Crunch feels good. Generally, you want to feel the good, not the bad. Because the bad is bad. Good, on the other hand, is good. That's why they call it good. So to review, bad feels bad
Why?
and good feels good. So if you want to feel good, join Crunch.
Join Crunch from $9.99 a month.
All right, kind of dumb, but fun. We had fun with it. The spot actually did really, this campaign did really well for us in 2024. We continued it in 2025, and I'll share with you, this was the final spot we ran kind of in the back half of last year.
When you work out at Crunch, you feel good. Getting stronger, that feels good. Getting a high five from your new bestie, that feels good too. However, out there can feel bad. Really bad. Really, really bad. So feel good at Crunch, starting at $9.99.
Join Crunch Fitness today.
All right, so we ran this campaign for 2 years, and we recognized that we really good momentum. Take just about every metric, whether it's a marketing metric, a business metric, awareness up, consideration up, the campaign likability was high, leads were up, sales were up, same-store sales, you name it. This campaign did really well for us, so let's not screw it up, right? Let's continue the momentum. So we went back and we do research every year, but this year we really dove in on the qualitative research, right? And so these are real people. These are the real people behind our research. These are not demographics. These aren't segments, but these are actual Crunch members and Crunch prospects. These folks are all part of the young, strong, and social audience that we target, and each of them really helped uncover the emotional truths driving our campaign. And the insights gained from this really bridge our brand ambitions to the consumer truth. So there were 3 things that jumped out. They still want an escape from a serious reality, right? Today's under 40 crowd are stressed and they're craving escape, authenticity, and connection. And the Crunch experience can help fulfill their emotional needs. So we got some confirmatory research as part of this. We did confirm that people use fitness to escape from the world's intensity. We got a lot more understanding from them around authenticity, right? It's magnetic. Real experiences pull people towards your brand, and in our case, towards Crunch. What's really interesting is we heard a lot about what's the vibe of the gym, the vibe. They all use that term, right? And so when they discover Crunch's vibe, we hope that they'll stick and that the gym becomes a social outlet, right? Not just a gym. And people have used the third space ever since Howard Schultz coined the term third space. Lots of people use it. What I would say here is what we've learned about our members is that even if you come to the gym to work out alone and you don't even want to be talked to, you still want to be around other people because the gym, the lights, the music, but the members are motivating to get you to work out. Anybody here runners? Runners? Do you run solo or do you run like in a park with a bunch of other people? Solo. So it's hard to believe with this physique, but I'm a runner too from time to time. And I run near a park near my house. And I'm not going to tell you my pace, but let's just say it's okay for a guy in his mid-50s. But then sometimes I run in Central Park. And there's a lot of people running in Central Park, right? And I knock a good 30 to 45 seconds per mile off my pace, and I don't even realize it, right? Because other people can be motivating, right? So the vibe, that's important. And then consumers want to release from stress, and we think that we can deliver that feel good that they crave. So the bottom line is that Crunch not only helps you feel good, but it actually helps you feel more emotionally, more mentally, more socially, and more physically. And that's how we got to the Feel More campaign. So the idea here is that we evolved our approach. We're focusing on the vibe created by the gym and its members, right? Its energy as a source of motivation. Working out continues to be as much about mental health as it is physical health. The other thing that we learned is that the consumer's acutely aware of the stressors they're facing today. We don't need to remind them of that in our spots anymore. We don't have to tell them anymore how bad the world is. They get it, right? They just want to know what the solution is. They want to celebrate more strength when you hit that PR, personal record, more grit when you push through one last rep, more joy and community when you're belting out a 90s jam in a group fitness class with your friends. They don't want to just feel good. They want to feel more. So we charged our agency, Familiar Creatures, that's our creative agency of record, with capturing that larger-than-life crunch energy. Elevated and aspirational, yet quirky, crunch is quirky for sure, quirky, fun, and unapologetically inclusive. Our vibe is that of a club in full swing, bursting with emotion, connection, and personality. So that, in essence, was the brief. So how do you bring that idea to life, right? The insight work pointed toward nostalgia, naturally, not by the brief. Nostalgia gives our audience an emotional escape. So we heard that in the consumer research as well, and you can see kind of the news clippings here at the bottom. We all know that there's been this resurgence in kind of mid to late 90s and Y2K nostalgia. And apparently 2016 is now nostalgia, but that's a little crazy for me. But here's the other thing. We've earned the right to use nostalgia. It's in our DNA, right? We were the OG 90s gym. We were founded in 1989. It amplifies our vibe as being fun, energetic, and authentic. And the creative team saw nostalgia as the spark to bring the idea to life. So even though our target consumer was very young or not even alive, right, during this period, it's relatable because of social media, right? That's what TikTok can do. That's the positive that TikTok can do. Remember we talked about the 70s and how media kind of curated that? That's what TikTok's doing now with the 90s, right? So vinyl records have made a comeback. Who collects vinyl now? I do. It's my new hobby. I love it, right? CDs, and VHS tapes, apparently those are coming back. Yeah, apparently, crazy. Friends, right? I have kids, 3 kids, all between the ages of 20 and 30. They've all binged Friends multiple times, right? Insane. Stranger Things and Kate Bush, right? They've got us running up that hill again, right? So nostalgia's back. So that's lesson number 2. Nostalgia only works when we've earned it. If it feels borrowed or forced, consumers check out instantly. They can smell inauthenticity instantly. It has to connect authentically to our story and to Crunch's vibe. It should never feel like we're borrowing somebody else's memories. The goal is not a retro reference. It's about sparking real emotion, right? So you feel connected to the brand. When nostalgia aligns with the brand's truth, with our truth, it becomes our superpower. It builds trust, connection, and credibility because it feels genuine. It's not a gimmick. So lesson number 2, be authentic first. Let nostalgia follow naturally. And look, here's some snippets of Crunch in the 90s. We weren't just in the 90s. I'm going to make a bold statement. We defined 90s fitness. We were everywhere. We were in living rooms with Crunch workout VHS tapes. So if you can find those tapes, apparently they're coming back, right? The VHS tapes. Icons trained with us because if you wanted the real New York City fitness vibe, you came to Crunch. We transformed the fitness class. So spinning was invented by a guy by the name of Johnny G. Johnny G had one studio where he did spinning. But he came to Crunch, and Crunch launched it nationally. We were the first brand to do spinning nationally before it became a thing. We invented anti-gravity yoga. Has anyone done anti-gravity yoga before? It's awesome. It's hard. It's fantastic, right? We invented that. We also did pole dancing. We were the first brand to do pole dancing in the 90s. We did stiletto workouts, which sounds incredibly dangerous. We weren't just a gym. We were a magazine. We were a cultural icon. We were in Sex and the City, right? So we were a true 90s gym with a real community energy that transcended fitness. So we think that our history gives us permission to tap into the nostalgia of the 90s, right? It's not a gimmick, but because we lived it. So Crunch in the 90s was a vibe, it was a movement, and we think it was a bit of a cultural powerhouse. And by the way, we only had 35 locations at the time. So lesson number 3. The campaign works because it feels, our campaign we think works because it feels like a true 1990s music video. It's not a parody. The soundtrack is an earworm, right? It's an instant hook. It's nostalgic, but we think it can be unmistakably Crunch, that you'll think about the brand when you hear that song. I mentioned Hype Williams, the original director of that music video. Look up, if you don't know who Hype Williams is, look him up. He has got an A-list roster of clients that he has done music videos for. This guy is awesome. He joined Crunch about 40 days before we went to shoot the spot. He went to the gym probably 5 out of 7 days a week, got to know the team, got to know the staff, got to talk to the members. And we asked him, why did you, because he's super hard, he's super hard to find, literally hard to find. Man does not have a digital footprint. And he's only done a couple of television commercials in his entire career. And we said, why do you want to do this spot? And he said, man, my homies used to work out at the OG Crunches in New York City in the 90s. I love that brand. I want to be part of this. He was fantastic to work with. So we think he brought his signature style. He merged the past and the present seamlessly. It taps into the cultural moment, right? The craving of the 90s and the Y2K energy, and that's why execution matters, right? Nostalgia only lands when the craft is right. Show, don't tell. We're not creating a period piece. Now, through the lens of these 3 lessons, I want you to watch this spot again.
This is how we do it. It's Friday night, and I feel alright. The party's here on the west side, so tip up your cup and throw your hands up, and let me hear the party say, I'm kind of buzzed, and it's all because this is how we
Want to feel more? Crunch Fitness is how you do it, starting at $9.99 a month.
So it's early, right? This launched December 25th or 26th of last year, so we're only about 3 months into this. But I'll share with you just an early read, and what I can share. We're a privately held company, so I can only share so much information. Same-store revenue year to date is up 8%, so we do think nostalgia can help generate and capture demand. Brand recall is up 12%, so we do think that the creative cut through the clutter. When we tested the spot, it got 82% positive sentiment, so we think that this can really create new fans for us. Purchase intent was up 22% in test, so we're feeling really confident that this will continue to have legs for us throughout the first and second quarters. And member growth is up 2%. So we are creating long-term value and long-term loyalty. One of the great things about our business is we're a subscription model. We can project our lifetime value with relative accuracy because of history. And this is a really strong lifetime value business, right? So the fitness business is a very strong lifetime value. So we are creating long-term value and loyalty behind the campaign. So to recap, nostalgia can be an outcome but not a strategy. Nostalgia needs to be authentic, and execution matters, right? So we're not the only brand doing this, right? I think we heard that earlier this morning. So I want to show you some examples that other brands are tapping into really quick in the 80s, 90s, or the aughts. Now, I'm not going to share my opinion on these. I'm not going to do that, because I'm on the record. I'm not going to share what I think of these, but I do think some were done very well, and I think some maybe fell a little short, at least based on my 3 lessons here. So the first is what we saw at the Super Bowl. So Dunkin' Donuts and their Goodwill Dunkin', a 90s sitcom mashup with Goodwill Hunting, right? So you've got Sam Malone, you've got Joey from Friends, you've got Rachel from Friends, you've got George Costanza, you've got Urkel, right? And Tom Brady. I'm not sure why he was there. You've got, oh, shoot, can I go back one? I can go back one. You've got the Jurassic Park throwback with Xfinity Cable. So they brought back Goldblum and Sam, is it Sam Neill? O'Neill? Neil. And Laura Dern. Gap with Cat's Eye and Milkshake, right? Milkshake, that's not really the 90s, right? That was early 2000s, I think, was that song. But I will say, I think that spot looks like classic Gap ads from the 90s, right? Looks like they just nailed it. A couple years ago, we had Hellman's, Cat's Deli, When Harry Met Sally, I'll Have What She's Having. This is brand new. This is Levi's new spot, Behind Every Original. And for those of you that have not been living in the United States for any part of your life, this is supposed to be Bruce Springsteen and Born in the USA. And then it also can do things beyond just advertising, right? So Snapple just announced that they're going back to their original packaging from the 90s. Now, from what I understand, though, unfortunately, no glass bottles. So they're going to still stick with plastic. But as you can see here, from a wrapper standpoint, packaging standpoint, they've gone back to that classic 90s look. So go through that list and, in your own mind, which ones nailed it, which ones maybe fell a little bit short. I certainly have my opinions, but I won't share them any further. So with that, I finished 46 seconds early, and we do have a little bit of time for Q&A. I'm happy to answer any questions for you. Thank you.
Chad, thank you so much for kicking us off this morning. Have you seen what Tom Brady looks like? That's why he's in that ad. That's the only reason why he's in that ad.
He is a pretty man.
Yes, is an understatement of the day. All right, we are moving into our question and answer portion of the morning. This is when you guys get time to shine. What questions do we have for Chad? I can always count on Jeff to be my guinea pig to start off. Please introduce yourself and who you are with, where you are with. You know what I mean.
So Jeff Alderman, ad.com. So this is not a plant, but we shared this last night with you a little bit. So my daughter, who's a junior in college, started off as a Crunch member about a year and a half ago, lost 100 pounds, and now she's an instructor at 3 Crunch Fitnesses. So.
That is the best story. That is awesome. That is awesome.
Oh, that was no question.
Not a question, but really great.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gabrielle Richards. I'm with Triphilia and Shapermint, and I have to say I love the ads that you shared. It's so nostalgic for me. I actually was listening to Montel Jordan yesterday.
Were you? Were you?
Yes. I'm not making that up. And I am a Crunch member.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Where are you?
So I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. Actually, I live in the outskirts, so close to Snellville, so that's my location.
Snellville? Snellville's a good club. I've been there.
Yeah.
It's nice.
So curious, because I love the spots, but if you could share a little bit of the 360 marketing campaign that you guys
Sure.
did. Like, did you have this on TikTok? Did you hire influencers? Just curious about full experience.
Yeah. So we absolutely, great question. We absolutely have a full funnel approach to marketing. Now, we are a franchise business, so we've got about 55 franchisees in the U.S. that handle about 475 gyms in the United States. So the campaign, Canada does buy the rights to this, but it's primarily a U.S. campaign. But the way our model works, they pay into it. Is anyone familiar with franchising? Anyone work for a franchise concept, right? So many times, most of the time, franchisees pay into some sort of an ad fund or a brand fund, and the franchisees do that, and that's what my team controls. And that ad fund or that brand fund, about 80% of those dollars is really top of funnel, and mostly video. So it's CTV and linear TV and TikTok and YouTube. Those are the 4 big drivers for us on kind of top of the funnel. And then the rest of that fund primarily handles paid search. Paid search is something we don't want our franchisees touching for lots of reasons, right? So we handle that on behalf of the business. Everything in between is really the responsibility of our local partners, our franchisees. And it's actually where the majority of the spend happens. So just as a percent of sales, the majority of it happens there in that kind of the bottom of the upper funnel all the way down to the lower funnel, right? So their job is to, we hope we're creating demand at the top end and that they're capturing that demand and converting it into sales. So that then will run a lot of paid social. Primarily, there's direct mail. Good old-fashioned direct mail still works. And in fact, if you think about nostalgia, people like holding things, right? They like physical media. So there's actually been a little bit of a resurgence in direct mail for us. And then once you become a lead in our system, you give us your phone number and your email address, and then we never leave you alone. We will market to you all day and all night until you say uncle and you join the gym. So we've got all those things working with our CRM and our CDP and everything else. We do use influencers. We do that at the brand level as well. The challenge with influencers is for us is activating the influencer. So oftentimes influencers they'll talk a good game, but what ends up happening is that Crunch becomes the venue, and it's not the reason why they are doing what they do. Or it just comes off like an ad, right? And so to find that authentic connection between the influencer and the brand has been really tough for us. But we keep testing and learning and trying, and we'll get there eventually.
We have time for just one more question. Sorry, guys.
Sparky Whitty, Proof Advertising. Can you talk a little bit about the retention side of things? Obviously, for gyms, that's critical, and
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen this time and time again. It's easier to drive traffic and subscriptions in Q1, but how do you hang on to them?
Yeah, so retention is obviously an important part of our business. One of the things, so I've been in this business, I'm on year 10 with Crunch, and then I spent a couple years with Equinox prior to that. And our churn rate has remained relatively constant. It's basis points movements, but every movement in a basis point is actually real money. And so for us, we have a whole member marketing team that focuses on how do we engage the member both in the club, but also through other channels. Organic social for us is actually a really great engagement tool for our members as opposed to an acquisition play. We leverage our CDP to talk and to both identify churn and to reach out to them and try to get them re-engaged back into the gym. And oftentimes it's just a phone call from the club manager. Hey, haven't seen you in a while. Can we get you back in? And then I will say, AI we think has tremendous potential there for us, but we're just starting to scratch the surface. Okay? And that was it on the questions. I'm going to leave you with one last piece before we go. So this may be, I may be the most famous person from St. Louis, but I'll share something with you from maybe the second most famous person from St. Louis.
I want to apologize to you for something, because last time you were here, I think, we were talking about Emo's Pizza in St. Louis, Missouri, where, we mentioned you're from St. Louis, and you and I maintain that it's a very popular regional, local pizza chain. The worst pizza you've ever had in your life. I mean,
I'll say it's
Thank you.
John,